Hi everybody, and welcome back to my weekly live stream. Thank you for being here early. For those people who are, I super appreciate you guys. Or if you're watching the archive, hello and welcome to my live stream. Okay. Hopefully we're going to be all good here. Nothing crazy this time. I think my microphone is working. Hope you guys are all doing really well on this fine Thursday, as it's always Thursday when I do my live streams. I'm going to go back with my cello and chat with you guys a bit before we get started. So hopefully you can still hear me okay back here. Feel free to say hi in the chat. Sorry, I was looking at something. So how are you guys doing? We are back again this week. We've been doing a lot of different stuff on these streams. It's been really fun to kind of have to do it every week and sort of come up with some sort of something that we're going to do. And I feel like we've had a lot of variety in the first couple weeks. It's kind of hard to believe that it's already been, I guess, about a month that many of us have been under quarantine or stay-at-home orders. And honestly, the time has kind of flown by for me personally. I'm just keeping busy and doing a ton of work on music stuff and playing my cello for you guys, so I've been pretty occupied. It hasn't been the worst for me, but I know it's been tough for some people, so I hope we're all still hanging in there. I'll at least be here to distract you for this next hour. So today I'm just going to be playing some solo Baroque cello repertoire like I did on the very first official lockdown live stream about a month ago. I'm going to try to not repeat certain pieces, though I might pepper in a few. I'm going to do some selections, of course, from the Bach cello suites, because I know we all love that, and some other unaccompanied works. And I'll always be doing Q&A on these streams, so, feel free to say hi to each other, make yourself comfortable, and throw me any questions throughout the stream. I'm going to be checking back in with you guys pretty regularly. So what else do we have for introduction stuff? So if you are new to the channel, welcome. I am Emily and I play the cello, hence the name of this channel. And mostly what I play on this channel is my Baroque cello, which is a replica of an 18th century instrument. So it is a little bit different than the modern cellos that we are used to. I play on gut strings at A415, which is about a half step lower than our regular modern A. And I do have a slightly different playing style, but it's more of the style of the actual composers and the time period that they were living in. So if you are new, you'll get to hear some of the Bach cello suites played on my Baroque cello and kind of hear the differences for yourself if you're familiar with the repertoire. So yeah, Emily Plays Baroque Cello is really, really what the name of the channel should be. Though I actually did play my modern cello on last week's stream, I believe. I was demoing the Tom Play app, which is an interactive sheet music app. And I was demoing some of the works that they have on there and playing along on last week's live stream, so that I actually used my modern cello for. But for the most part, most of my playing is on my Baroque cello here on this channel, and most of the videos are period instruments as well. That's my thing, and I love taking questions and talking about the instruments and just opening people's ears to what these instruments sounded like. Because a lot of people never even get to be blessed with the sound of gut strings or something totally different. So I like being that person to bring it to everybody. So yeah, so last week we had the Tom Play sheet music app, so I was playing along with a lot of cute little arrangements. The week prior to that was the social media technology live stream for classical musicians. That's something I did because I just saw a really strong need for so many classical musicians trying to figure out how to get themselves, savvy to some basic recording techniques. So I did a live stream 2 weeks ago all about, kind of my approach to social media and online presence as a classical musician and some of my basic tools that I use. So that was 2 weeks ago. What else did we talk about on that stream? And then I, of course, talked about my audio mixing tutorial that's still available on my website, emilyplayscello.com/tutorials, if you're interested in learning how to mix your own audio using GarageBand, which is free with all Apple computers. So it's very user-friendly software, and my tutorial is just to get you started if you're brand new, so that you can record in any room that you have, even if it doesn't have a nice acoustic, and give it a nice acoustic in GarageBand after the fact. So if you're someone who's starting to record yourself, definitely check out my audio mixing tutorial. So that was 2 weeks ago, and then the week before that, I played duets with myself. That was fun, Baroque and classical duets. I pre-recorded the second cello part, and then I played along the first part live on the stream. And then the week before that was the first lockdown live stream, so that was more of like a little concert, which is similar to how this one's going to be. This will be even more informal. Like I haven't even decided everything that I'm playing today, but we're going to kind of talk about it together and go through it. So yeah, I just like getting to hang out with you guys every Thursday now. It's really fun, and hope you guys have been enjoying it too. So when I turn over here to the side, I am looking at you guys on the chat. That's what I'm doing. Oh yeah, it's Friday over in Europe, I guess, and other places in the world. It's late afternoon Thursday in Los Angeles. So I think what we'll do is just start kind of getting into the playing, but like I've always said, you guys can send questions anytime. So I'm going to be playing some Bach and some other things, but I usually do some warm-ups on the stream first. I know it seems a little weird to like perform scales for people, but because so much of my content is educational and is, I know a lot of the people who watch my stuff are musicians or string players themselves, I like sharing my warm-ups and my exercises that I do, even though I am literally warming up, meaning like I'm still getting myself going on the cello for the day. It's nice to share it because I think we can learn about our own practice and things that we can incorporate when we see other people practicing. So I'm going to do my usual kind of scales and warm-ups before we get into some of the music. Okay, and as always, I guess I didn't say this, I do accept tips and donations for these streams. It's of course not required. It's free to watch on YouTube if you don't have the means. But if you do enjoy the streams, there's a couple ways that you can help support. Direct to my Venmo is the no-fee, most simple way to just send me a little tip if you're comfortable with that. I also have the GoFundMe set up for larger donations or just people who prefer to pledge to a donation page. We do have the GoFundMe set up that's just running for all of these weekly live streams. And then I do have my Patreon, which supports the YouTube channel long-term, all the content that I put here on the YouTube channel beyond just the live streams, though the live streams are the main content right now. And Patreon is a way where you pledge a small amount or whatever size amount you want, but generally people do a small amount and it gets charged for every video I upload, which is now once a week with these live streams. So lots of people will pledge like $1, $3, $5 a video, and that'll get charged on a weekly basis and will just help keep my YouTube channel up and running. It's what has supported my YouTube channel for the last... Wow, I was just looking at these stats. I think I launched my Patreon all the way back in 2015, so it's been 5 years of my Patreon, which is amazing, and it really has kept this channel thriving, especially, around 2015, 2016, I think was like the real renaissance of this channel, and Patreon was booming at that time, and I had so much support that really made it possible. So I always shout out my patrons because they have been with me for a long time, many of them, and people are jumping on at any point. So Patreon is a really fun way to sort of be a part of my community, but one-time donations are awesome too, and watching for free is also awesome. So thank you for being here. Okay, good. I'm glad you like the warm-ups. Yeah, I'm big in... Oops, there goes my tuner. I'm big on warm-ups always. I mean, I didn't do them today, but I knew that I was going to do them on stream, so that's why I did not. But it's such an important part of playing. I mean, I know, like, when we're under a lot of pressure to be practicing, and we have a lot to practice, like when you're in music school or you have a concert coming up, it can be hard to make the time for warm-ups. You kind of want to just, like, get into it. But the practice is so much more effective, and everything is just easier when you do the warm-ups first. I mean, can you imagine if athletes like didn't do their warm-up exercises? If they were just like, oh, I don't have time, I'm just going to start doing the sprints now. I mean, I don't know any athletes, and I'm not an athlete, so maybe there are athletes that do that, but that would be really bad on your body and your technique, which is exactly what it is on instruments. It's bad for your body and your technique if you don't warm up. So, with that said, I'm going to get tuned, and we'll do a couple scales. That was easy. And as always, we've got the birds with us on the TV. I know it's like really weird because I know that the way the webcam, there's some technology thing when a camera captures a screen like this that makes it kind of flickery. So I know that's a thing, but it's like either it's an ugly black TV or it's an ugly flickering TV with birds on it, so I chose the latter. I used to not have a TV, and then I had a great filming area, but I got with the 21st century. It took me a while, but... with a long, short bow stroke. That is always what I like to do to warm up, because playing on this Baroque bow so much is about finger flexibility. That's how we get all of our different articulations that we're going to want to do. So this is a great bow stroke for waking up the fingers. You're going to see at each end of the bow, I'm going to be doing some shorter notes that are going to require more finger movement. I can't say it's all going to be relaxed. That's why I'm doing the warm-up, is to get it relaxed. But it's a great bow stroke for that. So already, like, that was really stiff. There we go. So I'm just trying to find that sweet spot where I can get my fingers to do the smaller bow stroke. So I'm going to start again. I'm going to keep going. I think I'm going to do that bow stroke on one more scale. Some faster bow stroke warm-ups. So I think I will do some 16th notes. And now I'll switch to a dotted rhythm. Is a very relevant to the Baroque period type of rhythm, because we do not do what is called a hooked bowing, which is a more modern approach to that rhythm, is down, down, up, down, But in more historically informed playing, we separate it out and play down up. But what we do is we still do a retake to make the shorter 16th note, if we're thinking of this as a dotted 8th 16th note rhythm, to make the 16th note connect more to the following 8th note rather than the preceding 8th note. So you can see, I'll slow it down a little for what I just did. Sorry, I'm on F major, not really ringing. So I go down, I retake, and then I go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and so on. So I'm retaking, but then I'm still going up. Whereas if I were not doing that retake, before I know it, my bow would be out in outer space. So the retake allows us to come back, and it also gives us more of a line because it helps the rhythm sort of move forward instead of getting kind of stuck. Okay. So I started right on time today. I think I'm just going to get right into the repertoire because I'm going to be stopping in between every piece anyway. So as I said, I did not like plan a program this time. It's a little more casual. I have a couple ideas of pieces I'm going to play, some of which I have not even played yet today. So it's going to be very informal, but I am still bringing you music from my heart to you. So I hope you can appreciate it regardless of how formal this stream is today. So I thought I would start with the Bach second cello suite, the D minor prelude. It's a little dark start to this stream, but really can't go wrong with Bach. And I guess there's not much else to say about it now, so I will just get into the music. And we'll see how this goes. I'm glad you like the TV with the birds. I like it too. I leave it on almost all the time when I'm home. I usually have the audio on very quietly, so you can hear the bird sounds too. I have it muted for right now, but adds ambiance with the sound also. Oh, so for manuscripts, before I start, so today, right now, I am using the Bärenreiter modern print where they do not put any bowings in. And the bowings that I'm doing are followed pretty closely to the Anna Magdalena score, but not verbatim. It's my own bowings from various sources. Sometimes I have played directly from the Anna Magdalena manuscript, but for certain suites I don't. I just have the modern print with my own bowings written in. But Bärenreiter is always what I choose for Bach. And for those who don't know, there's quite a bit of manuscript info around the Bach cello suites because we do not have the surviving original manuscript in Bach's hand. The closest thing we have is from one of his wives, Anna Magdalena, who worked as his copyist. We have her copy, and then we have some other copies from other copyists. And so we kind of do our best, but there are no absolute bowings for the Bach cello suites because we don't have the original manuscript. And Anna Magdalena is sloppy and a little inconsistent, so we don't like to follow her verbatim. But, and there are some arguments that Anna Magdalena wrote the Bach cello suites and not Bach himself, but we won't get into that because Bach scholars get very angry. We're going to say Bach wrote these and his wife copied them out sloppily. But anyway, so I'm just playing from a Bärenreiter modern print edition with my own personal bowings. All right. My C has been moving around, but we'll make it work. All right, prelude to the second cello suite. And there we have it, Bach Second Cello Suite Prelude. Hello everybody, if you are just joining or if you tuned in recently, welcome to my weekly live stream. I am just casually playing some Baroque cello music for you today, all unaccompanied music on my historical replica Baroque cello. So thank you for being here, and I always take questions all stream long, so ask them whenever. As a beginner, what etudes or practice exercises should I concentrate on? It really depends. I assume you're taking private lessons, since most people do. Your teacher likely has suggestions for you. But for beginners, etude-wise, I really like the Dotz-Sauer etudes, which I am going to play some today. Where's that book? They are like classical, late classical etudes, but especially in the first book, some of them are fairly easy. I'm going to play a few today. So these are nice exercises, and I actually am a big supporter of making your own exercises based on just taking different bow strokes and applying them to scales, or taking an excerpt out of a piece that you're working on and maybe like looping one measure. I really like getting creative with practice exercises, especially being very specific to what you're working on repertoire-wise. So I always encourage that. There are so many ways to find little, even if it's like a specific bow pattern or a specific shift that you have in a piece that you're struggling with, you can make an exercise out of just that isolated situation, whatever it is that you're working on. So that's a good way to work on things too. Okay, later, Michael. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, Guerrero. How's it going? All right. So, I feel like because Bach is so heavy, I can't like jump into other repertoire. I'm probably gonna play a little bit more Bach to get us more settled from that prelude. Couple more questions first, though. Oh, you're not sold on the triplets? I would love to explain that. Let's go through these questions in order. So, a brand of Baroque cello, Baroque bow that I would recommend. I get asked this question so often, and the unfortunate thing about Baroque bows is it's basically like bottom, like student level, most basic thing you can get, or professional level bows. There's not a lot in between. But I will say that both Char Music, which is a very popular string retailer, SHAR, and Johnson String, they both have about $200 Baroque bows. I have not tried them myself, but if you're an amateur, like you say, and you just kind of want to try it out and see how it feels, I think something in the like $200 to $300 price point, you know you're not getting like total crap, but it's inexpensive enough that you can kind of take the leap and try it out. So I would recommend charmusic.com, SHAR, or Johnson String, not strings, just singular string.com. Last I checked, they both had inexpensive Baroque bows that you could try. I am going to do the historical justification question last. Any tips for moving a teaching studio to Skype? I've only been teaching a couple years and have been struggling with the transition to online. Yeah, so it's definitely difficult. I had been teaching on Skype anyway before everybody had to move their lessons to Skype and Zoom. And I did have to approach my online students pretty differently than my in-person ones, especially because my in-person students, I do a lot of playing with them, whether it's doing warm-ups together or playing accompaniment with them or even just playing their part with them. I do a lot of collaborative playing in real time, which is not so much an option. Some people say Zoom is fast enough to do that. I haven't tried it myself because Zoom, you need a paid account to do more than an hour-long call. Anyway, so with Skype, it definitely has to be a student that's kind of self-directed already and can maintain the focus. I have not done it with kids online, and I do think that would be pretty challenging. I kind of structure the lessons to have more playing for the other student, like for the student rather than collaborative playing. So I do make them do kind of like a lot of playthroughs, and I find it does take the students a little while to get comfortable playing for Skype. So all that time that I would spend like playing with them, I have to kind of fill up with more. It just makes the lesson a little bit more like task oriented. You can't really like relax and play together and do a lot of close listening because the audio quality, of course, is never going to be the same as being together in person. So it definitely does take some compromises. It's doable though, definitely more so with the older students and the adults than it is for the kids. But it's an adjustment and it's very possible, and I have taught some students online who've made incredible progress, so it's kind of just like adjusting your own methods to work with online. So I wish I had better actual tips, but I don't really. So now this historical justification. So what I did at the end of this prelude, so I can show to people who are not as familiar. So what the end of this prelude has, for those who are not super familiar with the suite, if we look at the end here, I'll try my best to illustrate. We just have sustained chords as the ending for this prelude. So the way we typically hear this prelude performed is just with chords at the end. And so on. So the reason that I do what you call triplets, which what I'm doing is I'm arpeggiating the chord. I'm just doing a basic arpeggiation pattern with a slur. And it was very common in Baroque shorthand to write out sustained chords when arpeggiations were intended. We see this a lot in keyboard playing, especially basso continuo playing, but just in general keyboard works. And we have seen it, I think, in some of like the early 17th century violin sonatas, like the Bieber sonatas, things like that. It was typical shorthand for composers to write sustained chords, but it was either considered an ornament or just a normal part of regular practice to arpeggiate on what is written as a sustained chord. So my triplets are my choice arpeggiation. As you can see, I'm doing them with a slur. So I'm not trying to create another rhythm, so to speak. I'm just doing a slurred arpeggiation bowing like we might see a gamba doing. If a gamba wanted to arpeggiate a chord, you know, a gamba is like a 6 or 7 string cello with an underhand bowing, and they do all sorts of slurred arpeggiated bowings, which was very common in the period. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using one of the rules of the history, which is that when you see a sustained chord, an ornamentation or a variation option is to do some form of arpeggiating out the sustained chord. So especially when I play Bach, I do a lot of ornamenting and sort of more creative approaches, just because we've all heard these suites so many times. And I'd like to think that all the embellishments and things that I add are historically informed. That's my own aesthetic, that's my training. So, you know, I wouldn't tell like a modern player who hasn't done a lot of historical study to go crazy and ornament Bach, because God knows what would be coming out of that. But I think if you have done some study on stylistic ornamentation and you feel pretty, you know, in the language of the style, it's great to be adding a little bit of ornaments here and there. So I see those chords as a great opportunity for that, and that's why I do those arpeggiations. Alrighty. So let's keep going into a little more Bach. Maybe I'll stay in the second suite. I think I'm gonna do the Allemande next. I have not even decided if I'm gonna do repeats. I am gonna decide that spontaneously. too many squeaks on the A string, but other than that, I like that movement. I think it's one of my favorites of the second suite. My strings are going so out of tune though because it's actually pretty warm today. My apartment gets fairly warm because I have a lot of natural light, which I like, but sometimes it's a challenge for cello playing because nobody likes to play next to an air conditioner. Yeah, I'm actually fairly out of tune. See why they invented fine tuners hundreds of years later. Okay, let me check in with you guys. Ken, I respect your opinion, but what we're talking about is just artistic decisions. My artistic decision is that I wanted to arpeggiate in a triplet pattern, and just like a musician of the 17th and 18th century, they would use their own artistic discretion, and I can guarantee you, not everybody was full of impeccable taste. I mean, especially if you read the old treatises of the time period, lots of composers were hating on other composers and other players for their flashy playing or their distasteful playing. You know, everybody had their own take. My take is to do that triplet rhythm, and honestly, I think it's historically supported enough, and I think when we get too much into the like overly controlling of like it doesn't make sense to do that, like it's an arpeggiation pattern, and I see what you're saying, that there are not groups of three, but that's actually why it's an ornament. That's what's making it an ornament, is it's changing the rhythm. But it's at the end of the day, it's just an artistic decision, and historians can argue all day, but artistic decisions just vary from artist to artist. Any tips on memorization? I kind of memorize naturally, so I've never had to work on memorization, and I've also never performed like a recital or anything by memory. But the best thing I can say about just learning a piece and knowing it so well, like through and through, is listening to the piece, like when you're, other than when you're playing it, listening to the piece and playing along in your mind, with or without the music in front of you, starts to form even more neural pathways of your hearing of the music and your knowing of the music in your ear and the knowing of the music in your fingers. I think if you can't memorize, like if you couldn't sing the entire piece, you shouldn't try to memorize how to play the entire piece. It should not be just like a purely kinesthetic memory, unless that really just works for you. You should have the piece memorized in your brain, what the entire piece sounds like, especially that way if you do have some sort of slip up of the fingers, your brain and your ear still knows how it's supposed to sound, and so you can kind of get yourself back sooner. So really knowing the piece, just knowing it by ear, I think is the most useful thing in memorization. When did silver wound gut for G and C string originate? Are yours wound or pure gut? So I have what's most standard for modern day gut strings, which is that my bottom strings, my low strings, are wound in silver, and the top two, the A and the D, are what's called open gut, so they do not have any wrapping around them. In terms of when the silver wrapping began around gut strings, I don't have an exact answer to that. I do know that still in parts of the 17th century, they had unwrapped strings, even on the lower strings. Basically, the silver wrapping just kind of like stabilizes the string. I believe it helps it stay more in tune. The thicker strings are more prone to changing drastically from weather and humidity changes, so the silver wrapping just kind of keeps it a little bit more stable. But I would say probably, I'm sure still into the 18th century there were open, unwound lower strings. I don't think it became like a standardized practice, but I would say in the 18th century is when they started wrapping them more. 17th century was probably primarily open gut, I would imagine. but I'm just kind of making an educated guess. Okay, so now that we've had some dark Bach, let's move into something a little lighter. I may come back to Bach later in the stream. We'll see, because I'm only streaming for an hour, so it just depends how many questions there are. But I think now I will move into some Dotz-Hour since we were talking about etudes. I did a couple of these on another stream. So Dotz-Hour is a classical composer, so we're moving a couple years in the future now, but I'm still going to be playing on this Baroque cello, and I like to take these Dotz-Hour etudes, which are pretty much like simple repetitive etudes. You know, an etude is an exercise or a study, and I like to make them a little more musical and just add my own flavor to them. So that's what we'll be doing. I'm going to be playing number 4 from Dotz-Hour Book 1. Cute little Dotz-Hour etude. Okay. So maybe while we're in this in Dotz-Hour mode, I'll play another one because they're kind of short and cute. So I think I'll just go right into number 5, which I did play on my very first lockdown live stream, but I don't think people are super keeping track of every single piece I played on every single live stream. So we will now do little Dotz-Hour number 5. And there we had Dot Sour number 5. Yeah, Ken, it's funny. So this Dot Sour book that I have is from my modern cello days, which date back to my early undergrad. So it still has a lot of notes from like my modern playing. Not a lot, but a couple notes that I just disregard because I actually find that these pieces are kind of sweet and cute, and you can totally just like ignore the exercise portion and turn them into a little piece of music. That's what I've always done with these since I've played them on my Baroque cello, and I really enjoy it. And it's very handy to have as much unaccompanied repertoire as possible, just like for gigs and stuff like that, to just be able to have a lot of stuff to play. So the Dot Sour Etudes are great for that too. Because especially if you take a gig and they want an hour or 2 hours of solo cello at an event or something, you don't want to play a bunch of Bach suites in that time. I mean, you want to play some, but you're going to tire yourself out. So it's nice to have like kind of easy, more playable repertoire that sounds good by itself that you can play for stuff like that. So that's kind of why I dusted off these old Dot Sours. So another thing that I was going to play today that I have not yet played is some Dall'Abaco. So I've played some of this before, and these are kind of some of my favorite repertoire. So these Capriccio by Capricci is the plural, Capriccio is the single. Capricci, which is kind of like an improvisatory, unaccompanied piece, a Capriccio. So I'm going to play one of those today. Number 3 by Dall'Abaco, and this is kind of, all of this is pulling from my usual set of solo Baroque cello repertoire. So if you guys are new to some of this music, a lot of these I have recorded on my channel, and I do have a lot of them recorded on my studio albums that are out also, Bass Sounds and Bass Sounds Evolved, which are both all exclusively unaccompanied Baroque cello repertoire, including the Bach cello suites, of course, but also these Capricci by Dall'Abaco, some 17th century pieces by degli Antoni, and what else are on these? Also Dot Sour. So if you really like this solo cello music, definitely check out my albums Bass Sounds and Bass Sounds Evolved. You can find them anywhere you get music. Search Emily Davidson, and you will find my cello albums. And hello and welcome if you've joined on the later side of this stream. I'm just here hanging out with you guys like I do every week, playing some solo cello music, taking your questions. We're going to go about 10 more minutes or so. So now I'm going to play this Dall'Abaco. Now, I've already made this disclaimer a lot that I did not do a lot of warming up today, but we'll see how this goes. I think this is such a sweet piece. What I really like about these Dall'Abaco Capricci, they're written roughly around the same time as the Bach cello suites, but they have a really different mood and feel and character to them. Definitely a different style of writing. They're a little bit lighter. They're still great music, but Bach has a heaviness to him that these pieces do not have, in my opinion. So it's kind of a nice breather from Bach sometimes. Sorry about my squeaky A string, and I oiled the strings like a good gut string player should, but this A string's just getting pretty old. Alright, Capriccio number 3 by Dall'Abaco. And that was Capriccio number 3 by Dall'Abaco. Definitely one of my favorites. That's just like a charming quality. And even though E flat major is not the most fun key to play in, for whatever reason, I've just like always loved the key of E flat, just like the quality of the sound for some reason. Even though as a string player, it's kind of agonizing to play in E flat because you can never like really get the resonance how you want it, but there's something about that that I kind of like, that sort of darker sound that we get from the key. So that was fun. And we've only got time for about one more piece, so I might just end on a little Bach, have some Bach bookends here, unless there's something else. I could play a 17th century piece that I did in the first stream by Vitali. I love my 17th century music. That would be probably a little more uplifting. So why don't you guys let me know what you would prefer? Another Bach movement, probably like a saraband, or a 17th century ground bass piece. I'll let you guys vote. And if nobody votes in a minute or two, I will just decide. Oh, and do also get any final questions in since we are wrapping up. Time really flies when I really keep it to an hour. All right, anything? Let me think about which saraband I would do. 17th century? All right, bam, it's done. Even though I did do this one, I did play this Vitali in the very first lockdown live stream, but I think that's okay. Oh wow, unanimous voting pretty much. See, and I play Bach because everyone always asks me to play Bach, and now here I am and everyone wants me to play 17th century. See you later, Randy. Thanks for stopping by. All right, let's do this little Vitali. I love my 17th century music. And there you have it, little 17th century piece by Vitali. Very cute. I just love those little ground bass pieces. Kind of keep ringing in your head forever. You can just keep the ground bass going in your mind, make up your own variations. I really like it. Okay. Just made an adaptation of the prelude in G major for electric guitar, trying to stick to a clean and legato sound. Yeah, well, you know, the G major prelude, it's famous for a reason. It's an amazing piece of music, and it's been adapted for so many instruments. And it kind of works on so many instruments, too. I think the weirdest, and especially a string instrument to a string instrument, there's always going to be a commonality there. When I hear, like, a flute play Bach cello suites, it's, like, cool the first time, and then you're kind of like, why are you doing this? Or sometimes when I see, one thing that an exception to the string playing rule, when I see double bass play Bach cello suites, especially when they keep it in the original key. That to me is weird because the bass is tuned in fourths, cello's tuned in fifths, so they don't even have our same open string combinations. So it really makes playing this music really different if you switch. I mean, I guess guitar, of course, is going to be tuned in mostly fourths in addition to the third. But really playing an instrument tuned in fifths is the best for a cello suite. So when you move a cello suite over to viola or violin, it's pretty understandable. But those adaptations are made everywhere because it's great music and everybody wants to play it. So can't really fault everybody for making arrangements of it. Okay. All right, guys. Well, we have hit an hour. Time flew. Didn't play as much music today, but I always like the balance with Q&A. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. The wrap up, for anyone who tuned in late, I'm doing these live streams every week now. They're a combination of all sorts of things. Today was a very informal playthrough of repertoire, just to be playing on the channel and keep the music going. Sometimes we do just more like discussion topics. Sometimes I demo different things. I've played duets with myself. So every week I'm here on YouTube. As of now, I'm keeping this day and time. I might change it up, but that'll be announced on my social media at Emily Plays Cello everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. So if you want to keep up with everything that's going on, definitely make sure you're following me, at least on Instagram or Facebook. And thank you to everybody who is helping support these live streams, either through my Patreon or through the donations I've received so far. I super appreciate it, and it tells me how valuable this is for you guys, and that helps me show up here every week knowing that you guys enjoy these streams. So keeps me coming back, keeps you coming back. It's a good arrangement. So definitely subscribe to my channel if you're new here. Check out some of my instructional videos if you want to learn more about historical string playing and music history. Lots of videos of me playing cello if you just want to listen to that. And you can, of course, check out my albums on all your streaming and music stores. Search for Emily Davidson. I'm not Emily Plays Cello on my albums. I'm my real name, even though I'm Emily Plays Cello pretty much everywhere else. So thank you guys. I really appreciate all the support. It means so much to me. I'm happy to be showing up for you guys every week again. If you play classical or Baroque music and you want to be featured on my channel because you're looking to maybe build your own social media or your own YouTube channel, definitely check that out. I love to feature other musicians on my channel as well, just because I can only record so many videos. And I've already got hundreds of them, so I love showing other people, especially people who are doing work in the same vein as what I do here on the channel. So if that applies to you, go to emilyplayscello.com/collaborators, and I can even help you with the audio mixing for the video and everything like that. So if you're interested in being featured, definitely check that out. If you're getting used to recording yourself and you want to learn a little more about it, you can check out my audio mixing tutorial on my website. There's a lot of good stuff to dive into if you're new here and you want to know more about everything that we're doing here. So thanks all you guys. Have a wonderful weekend, rest of your week. Everybody stay sane, take care of yourself, take care of your friends and family. We're all going to get through this time and be better for it when it's all over. So keep your chin up, keep the music playing. We'll all be good. So, all right, guys, I will see you all next week. Bye.